Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pretty Suited Podcast, where we discuss career, culture, and the commitment to being our best selves. I'm your host, Lauren A. And today we have a special guest. I'm so excited. Yes. So if you don't know, this is March. So it is Women's History Month. So, we always want to give a shout out to the phenomenal women that are doing great things out here, not only in the past, but, in our present day too. And this woman is no exception to the rule. She is definitely what I would like to call a Renaissance woman, somebody who wears many hats and
Yeah.
it stands boldly in that, and that's what's up, right? So we
Yeah.
want to celebrate her. So I am joined here today by the lovely Portia Benbow.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on. Yeah, I like that. Renaissance woman. I'm going to claim that. I'm going to claim all of that.
I really think that is true, though.
Yeah.
From what I've seen from the work that you've done, and we're going to get into all of the titles, soon. Actually, let's just get into that right now. You have been a mom, a wife, an ambassador, an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
a basketball coach. I know I'm missing some.
All the things.
A couple of things. Okay, well, first let's
Yeah.
just introduce you then and tell the audience about you and what it is that you do.
Yeah. So Portia Benbow, originally from Savannah, Georgia. Shout out to Savannah, Georgia, born and raised. I am a mother. He calls me Pima. That's my baby. I'm technically a bonus mommy, but I raised him, so that's my baby. So he calls me
Absolutely.
Pima, and now everybody calls me Pima because he calls me Pima. I'm a wife. That's 24/7. And then during the day, I work for the Atlanta Hawks in Community Impact, senior manager of Community Impact. And then I guess by night, I just started my own nonprofit around diabetes. I'm also type 1 diabetic, so just started my nonprofit called Diabetes the Odds. So I guess I'm a CEO of a nonprofit organization now too. Um, my career has been in collegiate and professional sports over the last 12 years. Former basketball player, still love to play when I'm not on the injured reserve list. As you get over 30, things just start to break down. But anyways, when I'm not on the IR list, love to play basketball and play competitive kickball too. So, yeah.
So just all around, it's just amazing that you're able to, balance all of these things and
Yeah.
and still find time to also be a health advocate as well.
And
And
balance is a stretch though. Yeah, it's more like manage.
I guess it's the effort and the intention. That's what matters,
And the
right?
support.
And the
And the
support.
support. Yeah.
That
Good
matters.
husband, amazing son. Yeah, they support me in everything I do.
Okay, well, we're going to get into our history, because our family has known each other since the beginning of time. And, we've always kind of been in each other's life in some capacity, just being a support system or just, way to go, keep going, stuff like that. And from what I've seen, you've always been able to find a passion and really delve into it. And so I kind of want to take it a step back and talk about your history a little bit. And I haven't met anyone who loves the game of basketball more than you, male or female. So, let's do a loving basketball kind of reference or not, not loving basketball. Let's do a Sanaa Lathan reference from Brown Sugar. And let's start with, when did you fall in love with basketball?
Oh man. Basketball has been such a blessing to me. And I think, not everybody finds their passion or their purpose. And I know for a fact, I don't know exactly where the Lord has me going, but basketball is definitely in there, right? Basketball and people. And it's been like that for as long as I can remember. Started playing basketball when I was maybe 5 or 6. Coach Button, I think, was my first basketball coach from Savannah. Shout out to Coach Button. And then Delaware Rec Center on the east side of Savannah is where I feel like I really got really good. Coach Landy, it was me and probably maybe like 5 or 6 other girls that kind of grew up in that same cohort. We all went on to play college basketball or high school basketball. So, basketball had given me friends then. It taught me how to be competitive. It taught me how to excel under pressure, taught me how to be a good teammate. I think a lot of my leadership comes from playing basketball. So I would say probably when I was like 5 or 6, and then really started loving basketball like around 10, 11, 12, middle school. Won my first championship in middle school. Shout out to Coach Heller. And then got to high school at Jenkins High School in Savannah. Played varsity since I was in 9th grade, and then ended up playing basketball at Armstrong. Started out at Georgia Tech, tried to walk on. That didn't work. Missed basketball so much, I just came back home to Armstrong, which is a college in Savannah, and they let me walk on, and then I became a scholarship athlete. So, like basketball, never left. And I work at basketball. It's not going anywhere, honestly.
Right.
It's not going anywhere.
Right. But you bring up a great point when you talk about, what basketball has done for you as a person, right? So leadership skills, let's talk a little bit more, or can you talk a little bit more about how that kind of translates into the work that you're doing now? Because you're still playing basketball, you're still in the basketball world, but you're able to incorporate the actual soft skills from basketball into your career now.
Yeah, I think because you have teams everywhere you go. And I think everybody on the team are good at certain things. And I think naturally, I tend to emerge as the leader. And I'm okay with that, even if it's not by title. Maybe it's by personality, or maybe it's by experience, or whatever that may be. So I think it's the same, right? You got a 5 on the court. Well, you got a 12 on your team. And, I don't have as large of a team here at this particular role, but it's the same, understanding your teammates, what they're great at, what makes them tick, what motivates them, what can they bring to your team, and what the end goal is. How can you help them grow? How can they help you grow? It's the same thing both on and off the court.
I totally agree with that. I think I always bring up the concept of a leader versus a manager. Yeah. And, when you have to be a leader, you kind of have to do both, but the leadership part really brings the most out of your team, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
In basketball, you have the 5 people on the floor, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I know a little basketball, but I'm not I'm not a guru. But the 5 positions all have a role to play. And so you really don't, not necessarily trust, but you really wouldn't expect a point guard to act as a center, right? Unless he's just dope, or she's just dope.
No,
like that.
But the point guard needs to know what the center does.
Come on now.
Where the center's supposed to be.
Come on
so
now.
Your comparison to a leader and a manager is almost like you can have a point guard that is supposed to be running the plays and has the ball in their hands, but they may not do the intangibles, right? So like that's the manager. But then you get a point guard that manages the floor, that can manage personalities, that can motivate the entire team. And that's more like your leader.
Playing to each other's strengths so that we can make, get to the end goal, which is winning, or getting the deal, or securing the sale, or turning in the report, whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
So I think that's really dope. I really do. And people kind of underestimate those soft skills, right? I feel like in my profession in healthcare, we could become so task oriented in what we're trying to do, and the patient outcome or what have you. But along the way, you've been in contact with so many different moving parts and elements and people and how and other disciplines, that you pick up a lot of great things along the way if you actually pay attention. And you can fine tune that and take it pretty much anywhere you want to.
Right. Yeah. When you talk about just getting caught up in the task or the project, I think it's easy to do that and not really focus on the people, right? Like you could be going. My pet peeve is for somebody to come ask me something and not speak to me. Like, what is going on?
Like, hello?
Don't ask me for nothing. Right. Don't ask me for nothing unless you speak. Like, just be, you know what I mean? But we can get so going. We can get so caught up in things that we're not thinking about the person.
Absolutely. So can you speak a little bit more about the work that you do at Atlanta Hawks?
Yeah, so I have the pleasure of strategically planning fun, innovative community initiatives. So we go out to the community, we talk to community leaders, nonprofit organizations, school systems, churches, you name it, and we figure out where there's a need in the Atlanta community. And we typically focus on 4 different areas. So health and wellness, which food insecurity, youth mental health, and then just, obviously basketball clinics and camps, which is the physical wellness part. We focus on economic empowerment, so entrepreneurship, small business initiatives. We focus on, where am I spacing? Health and wellness, economic education. So all the education, K through 12, STEM education. And so we really just go out into the community, find the need, figure out the best way to use our resources or partner with other corporations to combine our resources to then give back to the Atlanta community and surrounding areas.
That's great. I
love my job. It's fun.
Because it touches on pretty much a lot of points. Yeah. Like, it touches on a lot of things that you can do to help people. I mean, health and wellness is a given. Right. We have a definite health problem in our country, and just being able to find organizations that are kind of finding where the gaps are and trying to fill those gaps, that's great. Especially a large organization like the NBA. Or the Atlanta Hawks in general. And then also the economic aspect of it, because you can't really have a moving economy without, people being knowledgeable about working and what government or even just money, financial wealth and well-being. So you also mentioned that you were a health advocate of type 1 diabetes. That's a conversation that it's a real dense one, right? Because in healthcare, we deal with patients with type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, gestational diabetes, all of the sort. But, the average person, they really don't differentiate between the two. So could you shed a little bit of light on, type 1 diabetes and how your story dealing with type 1 diabetes?
Like, everybody knows, that grandma and them got diabetes, but that's typically type 2, right? I think it's becoming more known about type 1, but like you said, a lot of people don't know the difference. So the name of my nonprofit is Diabetes and the Odds. And we focus on education, awareness, and then access to medical resources for underserved communities, which typically are Black and Brown communities. So we try to educate and bring awareness to those things. So type 1 it used to be called juvenile diabetes because they thought that only kids would get it, but they've stopped calling it that now. It's type 1. And it's interesting because the more that I meet people that are type 1, they're getting them in their 20s and their 30s. Yes. Which is so wild to me because when I was growing up, it was always kids. I got it when I was 11. So to hear somebody have to become a full adult with all their habits and life as they know it, and then all of a sudden it's changed completely.
As far as the definition, off the top of my head, I know that it has a lot to do with the insulin resistance, right? Yeah. So your body produces insulin from your pancreas to be able to break down glucose, which is the sugar. And so with type 1, you weren't necessarily born with the ability to create that insulin like that to where it breaks down the sugar.
So not quite. Type 1 is autoimmune. So it's like your body kills off the cells that produces insulin. So my body was normal up until I was 11.
Right.
So I was producing insulin, and then I don't know exactly what triggers it, right? They say you can get sick and it triggers it. You can eat something and it triggers it. You can whatever it was triggered it at 11 for me. And then type 2 is more of it's I think lifestyle based. There could be some predisposition like within your family. So it could be easier for you to get diabetes, but it's mostly lifestyle based. So that's more like insulin resistant, or your body may make insulin but not know how to really use it correctly.
Right.
Yeah. And then gestational, people get it when they are pregnant. Sometimes they keep it, sometimes they don't. But I was actually listening to a nurse practitioner, and she was saying that when people get gestational, a lot of times they could have been already pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
So really on that border. And you're in healthcare, so I don't know how often you see it.
That's correct. Yeah, a lot of people these days are pre-diabetic and don't even know until they
know it.
Because if you go to the doctor and you may get some labs done, you probably were fasting, so your sugar may have been a little lower, and that's just a point of care. That's just the sugar at that moment. Yeah. But until you actually test your A1C, which basically measures your sugar for about a 3-month period, you don't necessarily know about if you have diabetes or not unless you show symptoms.
Right.
and that's when they find out. That's when they go to the doctor, and that's when they do the test, and they're like, oh, well, you're diabetic. So with us, our lifestyles and how we eat, and everything is just basically flooded with sugar. Anything that we consume from the shelf is flooded with sugar.
Everything. Yes.
So, that kind of puts us more at risk as
Yeah.
Americans for being, pre-diabetic and diabetic. And then when you're pregnant, that just sends your body all over the edge
Yeah.
because you already are just all over the place hormonally. And then that just sends you over the edge. And then now you have gestational diabetes. So
Yeah.
it's
I'm a
sick
little
of time.
nervous. I'm a little nervous. I want to be pregnant, and I'm like, whew. I
Yeah.
do have some of my friends that are diabetic that have just had kids and they were healthy pregnancies. So that motivates me. But I would be lying if I said there's not a little bit of anxiety about getting pregnant and having type 1 just because of how controlled it has to be or it's going to affect the baby. My A1C right now is 6.5. The goal is to get it down to 6 by the end of the year. So not terrible. We're on that pre-diabetic, range. But I really want to get it on the lower end of that pre-diet, like 5 point something. So the goal is 6 this year.
Yeah. And it can be done. I
It's
feel
gonna be done. It
amen.
will be done.
It will be done. No, you got to
Yeah.
speak. Absolutely. And so you speak about the nervousness that you get, with you being diagnosed and having to adjust and formulate kind of like a regimen of, I don't know if you actually take insulin or if you have like an automatic insulin pump or any kind of thing that helps you regulate your sugars. That takes time. That's not something that's easy to kind of just perfect offhand, right?
It's not at all. I have an insulin pump, and then I also have a continuous glucose monitor, or you may hear it called a CGM. So since I've had the CGM, it's been a lot easier than what it was before because you're supposed to prick your finger 4 or 5 times a day, but I wasn't doing that. I don't know if a lot of people were doing that, especially if you had it for years, right? You get diabetic fatigue, and it's like, I know my body. I'm not pricking my finger.
Right.
That's definitely not. My A1C was like 8.5. Okay. So that wasn't working. Finally got on the CGM. And the CGM reads your sugar every 5 minutes. So it gives you the chance to, affect your blood sugars quickly, in real time. And so since I've been on that, it's helped me a lot, right? Down to 6.5. Ideally, you want your CGM to talk to your pump, but I have a Medtronic pump and a Dexcom CGM, and they don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
But I'm still able to manage, and you just kind of got to do what works for you. But ideally, it's a little easier when they talk to each other because then you can activate the closed loop system, and then it starts to almost act like an automatic pancreas a little bit. You still have to manage it, right? But it gets easier when they're talking to each other. Yeah. So thank God for technology because when I was 11, I didn't have that. So if you have diabetes now, there's a lot of technology that makes it a lot easier. It's still an ongoing, you still have to be conscious of it 24 hours a day. Probably making a decision about your diabetes every other decision you make throughout the day. But technology has made it a lot easier to manage diabetes.
I'm glad that you've been able to manage, your diabetes and still live a fulfilling life. How important is it? Has your social circle and your family been in just kind of keeping you going in this process?
Man, I felt like growing up, even though my friends knew about it, and of course my mom and dad, took me to doctor's appointments and all of that, and they never gave me a shot ever. Like I always kind of managed it on my own from a little girl. So I've always had like support in terms of, we're here, but still didn't know anybody else that had type 1 diabetes. So it could feel a little lonely, like growing up. But as a young adult and a current adult, my husband is a big part of my support system. My son is a big part. My mother, since I've gotten a nonprofit, all of my friends and family that have really supported the nonprofit, your support circle is a huge deal. Your village is a huge deal because it's not an easy thing to live with, and it's a chronic thing to live with, and you can get burned out easily. And that's not even dealing with all the regular life stuff.
Yeah,
all the being a wife, being a mom.
Prices at the grocery store.
Yeah, being an adult, who you gonna date, all the other things you gotta deal with. Diabetes is just on top of that. So I think it's very important to, find people that support you. If you are dating,
Yeah.
you need to find somebody that's really gonna like learn about diabetes. It's gonna when I wake up with my low blood sugar, my husband is waking up because
Yeah.
I'm up, so he's up. When I have my high blood sugar and I'm irritated, it affects him too. Um, it's just you have to have somebody or a support system that's really that's like ready to get in the trenches with you and essentially have it with you.
Especially
Yeah.
like if you were to have a low blood sugar episode and, may, Lord forbid, not be conscious, they have to know what to do,
Yeah.
Same thing in high blood sugar. So like, those kind of things, the knowledge base is important, but also just the willingness to
Yeah.
kind of go through those tough times with you. That's important because a lot of times these days, unfortunately, you just don't have that fight
Yeah.
anymore comes to relationships. I'm on this
Yeah.
podcast. We talk about it all the time with how times have changed in relationships. Now, I'm not saying that, you got to put up with just some foolishness,
Yeah.
but just in we know lives,
Yeah.
nothing is perfect. The grass ain't always green on the other side, but
Mm-mm.
like really finding somebody who wants to stick it out
Yeah.
with you. I think that is a luxury. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the possibility, my husband, his grandfather died from diabetes. So then
Mm,
you got that,
yeah.
somebody may know a family member that got a leg cut off or that went
Yeah.
blind or so now it's like, okay, I love this person. I'm in this with them. What if I lose this person to diabetes? Like
Yeah.
that's a real fear for him. But you're right, it's a luxury. It's
Yeah.
definitely a luxury. He can see my glucose, my numbers at all time. So if I'm high and it's beeping on his phone too.
Yeah.
Or if I'm low and
Aw.
it's beeping on his phone too. Same with my mom. So she may say, "Hey, you all right? I got all this thing is beeping on me. You okay?" It's like, "Yeah, mom, I'm good. It's low, but I took a juice. And just give me like 15 minutes. I'll be good." So it's
Right.
good to have them in my corner. Yeah,
Cool. That's great. That's really great. I feel like, the social circles, they feed you. They
yeah,
really do when you're not able to kind of like feed yourself, that they're able to be that corner for you. So let's switch gears a little bit more so into your goals, right? So you're in a field where you can come across a lot of obstacles, right? Whether
mm,
it's it being male dominated or just, people not feeling like women can do it or even just experience whatever the case may be. How do you overcome adversity, right? Because you have a lot of experience with, of
yeah.
course, diabetes, but just how do you overcome the adversity that you face in these kind of times?
I will say sports is still very much male dominated. Um, but the organization that I've had the pleasure of working with, including the Hawks now, there are a lot of women in this
Oh,
spaces
that's
and actually
great.
a lot of women of color. We in Atlanta, so Atlanta's just different in general.
That is true.
So, I can look around and see hella women in the office, and then
Hmm.
half of them are women of color.
Right.
And then they're in leadership too. So I think that helps, right? Because if you can see it, you can be it. And
Yes.
at this point, I've struggled in the past with imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
Despite my track record of being successful, it's still like, should I be in this room? Am I doing this right? Am I second guessing
Right.
myself? But then when you have women around you that look like you, that are all ambitious, that understand the same challenges that you have in this industry, and they're constantly encouraging you and reassuring you, and like it does wonders. It does wonders. So I'll say where I work now, I do love the Hawks for that. Um, in general, I think I'm just at a point where, that imposter syndrome may creep in, and I'm like,
Yeah. Get
uh-uh,
up out of here.
get out of here, you might be afraid, but we're gonna do it anyways.
Yes.
And it's more so like I want to do it for me, but I also want to do it for the women behind me.
Yes.
And not behind me, but coming up, going through the
Yeah.
same path that I came through. So it's like we don't have time for imposter syndrome to set in because somebody else's God may be using you for somebody else's blessing or for you to help somebody else. And so,
Exactly.
you gotta keep it moving and do work, do what God has you, um, do what God has you, you know, wanting to do or do what God has planned for you. I couldn't think of do what God
Yeah.
has planned for you,
Yeah.
scared or not.
So speaking of the shift in kind of like women's basketball, or just women in general, or to celebrate Women's History Month, I know that you've noticed a shift in women's
Yeah,
basketball, like the Caitlin Clark and the Angel Reese
yeah,
conversation last year just blew up, and not
it did.
everybody to watch a college basketball game or a WNBA basketball game. So, like, how excited are you to see this shift?
I'm extremely excited, and the young talent that's in collegiate basketball right now is just, it makes me more excited because outside of Angel Reese, Angel's a senior. Caitlin Clark just declared for the draft, but you still got young players. You got Flage, who I love to watch because she's from Savannah. You got Juju Watkins, who's a freshman killing at USC. And so I'm just excited to watch these young ladies grow up and develop and see what happens. And then on the pro side, the Dream did some good things in the off season. So
I
Tina
saw.
Charles, yeah, so Tina Charles, who I've grown up watch, like she's gonna be here. Um, Jordan, that used to play for Seattle, I forgot her last name, starts with a C. She's here with us now. Um, I'm like, okay, Dream, I come to some of y'all games, but I'm about to come to a lot more this time because I'm excited to watch them play.
Yes.
Um, and then just some of the relationships that, you know, I've built in the past. Like some of the girls are still playing the league. Brittany Sykes was at the Atlanta Dream when I was working there. So love to watch her when she plays. Latricia Trammell, I coached with her. I was the director of ops. She was the assistant coach at Georgia State. Love her to death. She's doing really well with Dallas. And so, you know, that's more motivation to watch the W2 just because you want to see people grow and succeed. And some people you know, some people you don't. But I think
Yeah.
women's basketball is just, you know, love watching Dawn and her team undefeated 2 seasons in a row, different
Yes.
starters both years.
Isn't that the coach for the Gamecocks? For
Yes.
South
Yeah.
Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
So,
like literally in the books now for like
yeah.
her work with that too. So coaching
Yeah.
wise, we shifting gears as well. We're
Yeah.
starting to
So,
have more refs in football.
the NBA refs that are women. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, I
That's
mean, just way
exciting.
to go. I think that that transition is a good one for the people,
Yeah.
like you said, coming behind us who, or coming up who, is able to see it and say that I can do that too.
Yeah. Options.
You know,
Options
options.
to still be around the game. Yeah.
Lastly, what kind of goals do you have? Like, what is there left to do? You've pretty much done everything. So,
Oh,
what
it's
does sports
always something left to
do?
do. It's always something left to do. But before I leave this world goal is to have my own sports facility with a community aspect to it. So you can call it a community sports facility, whatever you want to call it. But there was this place called Run and Shoot back in the day. And if you're from Atlanta or you love basketball, you've been to Atlanta, you probably know Run and Shoot. And it was 24 hours and it had like 8 courts and it was dead smack on Metropolitan Parkway in the middle of the hood. And it was a hood all around. But once you got in there, it was like this safe haven where people from all walks of life came in and played basketball for hours and hours. And I remember being at Georgia Tech as a student, going to class, hooping in the, CRC, which is our rec center at Georgia Tech. But then at night, I'm going to Run and Shoot and I'm playing in like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. We sit down, we talk for a little bit, we play another 2, 3, 4 hours. And I would hang out in there all the time. And it's like, I want that again. Not that it has to be 24 hours, but it gave young people something to do, right? Staying out the streets,
Right.
coming here playing basketball, meeting some of the OGs of the neighborhood, so to speak, just like mentoring them and keeping them on the right track. You would meet celebrities in there, all kind of basketball players and artists would come in there. I mean, it was just like a great community place.
You said that y'all was playing basketball for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours.
Listen,
I would have passed
we
out.
would, we would play for, I at this point, I'm 19,
Oh
20,
yeah,
20.
so you
Yeah,
know.
I'm young. I'm 18, 19. Yeah, so we would play for hours, eat, sit down, chill, get back up and play again. Like, it was just, so I want something similar. Not that it has to be 24 hours, but something with multiple courts that can be, volleyball courts also. Maybe turf so that people can train, track, fitness studios. And then you can use basketball courts, as event space. But I also want some event space where I can do community events as well. And then a large parking lot, because I could turn that to an event space too. We using all the spaces. All the spaces for community events. But it's so many other things a community needs. And so I just really want to be this community hub in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how God works. So, you laugh about all the things, all the things that I've done in my past. Everything from, running a pro-am to being a referee, a high school referee, to, doing operations at the college level, coaching basketball, running events, being an event manager at a stadium. Like all of these things are going to come into play when I have my own facility.
Absolutely.
And so I think God knew exactly what he was doing.
Absolutely.
And all these people that I met along the way, somebody's going to be an investor or a partner or a consultant or something on this facility. Yeah. And so I'm just excited to see where it goes.
No, that is such a great point. I literally think about that all the time. And even in my experience in healthcare, like I've worn many hats from being at the bedside to being an educator to being in faculty at a university and all these different things. And even in my graduate program is in public health. So that just stretches epidemiology and all these things. So with that, you kind of like, it seems a bit, to the naked eye, it seems a bit scattered, but in God's eye, it's exactly what I need. So, don't ever want to underestimate somebody's ability because, I feel like I say this all the time, even to my students. I feel like Thanos with so many different stones.
Got all the stones. Yes.
And I'm just collecting stones.
And young people ask me that, they're like, I was told that I need to focus on one thing. And I said, why? I'm only supposed to have 1-page resume. I mean, okay, if that's what you want, but if you got relevant experience, why not? Yeah. So, I mean, I just feel like what's for you is for you.
And then kind of leadership, whether you're a manager or director or what have you, when you're looking for an employee, it is kind of like a speed bump in the back of your mind when you do see somebody with an extended experience or jobs. And that's solely because if you're a good leader, you're looking at it as, is this person resilient? Right? Because did they leave the facility or did they leave that organization because of hardship? Did they leave because they didn't like constructive criticism? Were they not punctual? Like, what exactly was the reason why you left? Now, with any interview I've ever been to, I can tell them I was never fired. And even if I was fired, or if that's the case for somebody who was fired, what was the exact reason of your departure? You know what I'm saying? Because that actually matters more so than just the number of jobs. Because as a good leader, I'm looking at those numbers like, wow, you have a lot of experience in these different areas that can contribute to my organization. But, what's the reason?
but that's also assuming that people are leaving jobs, right? There's plenty of ways to get experience. You can have a whole full-time job and get experience on the side. You can have a part-time job where you're getting experience. You could be volunteering. I did a lot of this stuff while I was in grad school. Grad assistantship, work part-time, several places, volunteered. So it's like I got a lot of experience, but I still have this same job that I've had for 2 and 3 years. But I'm definitely gonna look at you crazy too if you got a job for 3 months, then another job for 3 months.
Right.
Like that's not, you know what I mean? You gotta be smart about it. If you really truly want the experience and you can afford it in terms of time, volunteer. People are always looking for free help. People don't like to volunteer anymore though.
That's true. Like, everybody wants to get paid for the work
because they're thinking about it in a monetary compensation, but you're not thinking about it in terms of experience or who you're going to meet and what that leads to later. And so, I still volunteer, and I don't have to volunteer now, but I still volunteer because it's just who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to meet.
That's true. Yeah. Well, now let's get into our watch list of the week.
Okay.
You like? That was dope. Now, I actually been practicing.
You've been practicing?
So this week's Watches of the Week comes from a movie that I had mixed thoughts about when I saw the trailer, but it's Tyler Perry's Mia Culpa.
I knew you was about to say that. I
had to bring it up. I cannot bring it up. So this particular movie, if you haven't seen it already, is on Netflix. Seen it. It is featuring Kelly Rowland.
Beautiful Kelly Rowland.
Okay, I'm sorry. The legendary Kelly Rowland.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And the fine.
He's attractive.
Absolute Jim
Yeah,
of Trevante Rhodes. Sorry, I have a little bit of a crush on him.
you did. You clearly.
Yeah, so they were in this movie together, and of course, it's your typical crime drama,
Yeah.
sensual type of Tyler Perry film. But everybody's been saying different things about it. I didn't think it was that bad as
I
far
didn't
as
either.
the plot and everything,
Yeah.
and of course the acting was decent. Of course there could be some areas of
Yeah.
opportunity when it comes to the script and maybe the set and all that stuff like
Yeah.
that, but I think overall it was decent, very sensual, but decent. Yeah, so please check that out. What did you think about
Well,
the movie?
so I've seen it, and before I saw it, I saw some reviews, and it was like, "Oh, this is a terrible movie. Don't waste your time." And I'm like, "Well, one is Kelly, so I'm definitely gonna watch it just because I love Kelly Rowland, and I'm gonna support Kelly." But when I watched it, I'm like, "This movie is not bad. Like, it's given 7.5, 8 out of
Yeah.
10. It's not. It's not like, oh, I got to watch it again immediately." But it's
Right.
like I still enjoy. My husband and I watched it. That's our thing. Like we watch movies and shows together. We enjoyed it. And the scene with the paint and the
Oof,
sex, that was a nice scene. Almost had me
that
think like,
was,
is this a real thing? Like, can me and my husband go do this one day? Like, that's kind
let's
of pretty
go get
cool.
some.
Let's go get some paint. And then my mind just went to, but what if, all the crazy things. But anyways, so I thought it was a pretty good movie. I'm happy for Kelly. The gentleman was, I don't know him, I don't think outside of this movie, but he was amazing too. He did a really good job in his role. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
And I think he also did Bird Box. He also
Okay.
did like Predator. A couple of movies here and
Okay.
there. Just did the Mike Tyson short series on Hulu. So
Okay.
he's been doing some work, but he's always just kind of been casted as just this mysterious, handsome,
I could see that.
figure,
I
and
could see
he
that.
does very well.
I could see that. Yeah.
So check that out. Mia Copa. Congratulations to Kelly Rowland.
Yeah.
Definitely an icon in her own right. And celebrating women history, she did her thing on that. And I think she
Yeah.
was the producer on it too, so she got
Oh,
those
that's nice.
credits as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. So what about your movie
Not
or
really a
show?
movie. Yeah, so shows. So I'm a big Power and all the spinoffs fan.
Okay.
So that wasn't this week, but I think last week or week before, they did the season finale for Raising Canaan. So me and my
Hmm.
husband love to watch Raising Canaan. BMF came back out this past weekend. And so
Okay.
we sat and watched BMF.
I haven't seen that. What episode of Raising?
Of
Please don't.
Power? Of nope, of none of them?
BMF, Raising Canaan. I have seen all the powers, but I
Okay.
haven't seen BMF and Raising Canaan. I'm
Because I'm like, I don't
sorry.
know how you missed Amari. Because you need to
Oh
go back
no.
and watch Power. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well,
Don't
you could
drop
have
me
passed
off.
them. Look, you could have passed them because sis. But and then the other thing we watched on Netflix, we were watching the last season of Blacklist. And it's so
Okay.
good. I don't know if you watch Blacklist, but it's about the number one criminal on the FBI's wanted list works
Yeah.
with the FBI to get other blacklisters or other like famous like criminals. It's such a great show. So we finished that this week.
I like stuff like that. I like
Yeah.
little mind kind of
Oh
games.
yeah.
And I think I saw maybe one episode of Blacklist back when it first came out, but
Yeah.
I have to revisit it because I'm running out of good shows to watch.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to get into our tune of the week. Okay, so this week's tune of the week is just somebody who I just happened to stumble across. I have been listening to him on and off for years now, but Schoolboy Q just put out
Oh.
an album, and it's called Blue Lips.
Mm.
And at first, I really wasn't necessarily checking for it, but it just so happened to come across my playlist. And when I tell you that whole album literally has you feeling like you can go smash some windows and drive 100 miles an hour on 85, and I don't, and just not, you're not gonna get caught. Like that's
Yeah.
just the vibe that I
Yeah.
get from the album. And Schoolboy Q has a habit of really putting out like cult classics. Like he has his own
Mm.
following where, if you go to one of his shows, it's like amped up, pit riots. That's the kind of energy that he brings.
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, I need a little pick me up. I'm doing so much that I just need to turn on something that gets me going and gets me through my day. So I have been jamming that as well as Yeah Glow. That's still in my Serato.
Listen, that's the song. I was just about to say that. I was like, she about to judge me, but the same reason. Like, I just feel like I'm stepping on next. Like, I'm here to
Yeah.
not play with y'all. I got things I want to do. I got, I want to impact and make big change. And Yeah Glow gives me hype all the
Yes.
time.
I'm super happy for her and all the success that she's been
Me
having.
too.
And that song is like an affirmation slash
Yeah.
ratchet slash.
Yes.
It's just what you need. Just what you
That's what
need.
you need. That's what you need.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah. So
community.
check out those two, Schoolboy Q and Glorilla, to get you amped in your day going. So as far as, this has just been such a great conversation.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about you and the insight as to, how you've been able to overcome so much. And I hope that women can watch this, men and women can watch this
Mhm.
and be inspired, or if they're going through similar things, to, really kind of tap into what you've been saying so that they can continue on their life goal and purpose
Yeah.
and journey. So is there anything that you want to leave with the people before you leave or before we end?
Yeah, let's see. What do I want to leave with the people? I kind of go by like three things.
Okay.
Always treat people the right way,
Mhm.
right? Or at least try to treat people the right way. I know sometimes we don't always do that, but always try to treat people the right way. Always work hard because you never know when opportunities will present themselves.
Mhm.
And then my third thing is, and this was something that I had to like learn to do, but be comfortable with who you are and like be authentically you because God created you that way. So all the flaws, all the gifts, all of that, He made you with, your purpose in mind. And so just be you. So when I walk in rooms, I just tell myself, just be you. Just be you. They gonna either love you or not. And it's okay if they don't.
It's
But just be you.
okay.
It's okay if they don't, but just be you. So
I couldn't agree more. So
yeah.
where can people follow you? Where can they see, what you're doing?
Yeah, so for my millennial and older folks, I'm on Facebook as I'm on Facebook as Portia Benbow, B as in boy, ENB as in boy, OW. On Instagram _Portia, just B, so PORTIAB. And then please follow my nonprofit, Dia Beating the Odds, DIABEATING, the odds, on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, follow her. Support, because she's doing really good things for
Yeah.
the community. So absolutely. It's been my absolute pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much for your time and those gems that you've been dropping. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, to share this with people that you love. Share it with your friends and your family. Check me out in the next episode. I really have some good news to share. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And of course, I gotta leave y'all with this. You cannot manifest anything that you don't feel you deserve. So create the life that you want and look to the sky for grace. As always,
Amen.
bye.
Bye.
See you
Thank you.
next time.